Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gail Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Maraya Brown. She is a Yale trained, I'm not sure what this is, CNM and MSN, with her undergraduate in marketing from 1999. Her first career was in the corporate world with PAG, living in LA, and in 2003, she embarked on a one-year solo around-the-world trip and then started at grad school at Yale, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? And then she went on from there and taught at the Chinese Medicine College on the big island of Hawaii, where she lived for 8 years. I know that's some people's dream, so she had the chance to do it, and now is in the process of getting her certification through the Institute of Functional Medicine. She runs the women's health at the local functional medicine family practice and has facilitated women's circles for 12 years. She's Reiki certified, has gone through Peruvian shamanic practice training, and has attended births all over the world, such as West Africa, Central America, and Haiti. She married a man who proposed on their first date, and they have 3 children together, all home births, 6, 4, and 1. She was raised by multiple parents, multiple marriages, divorces, and multiple religions: Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and Rajneesh, which I have never heard of, Maraya. So you have to tell us a little bit about that. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. That's so fun. That's an older bio. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. That's really fun. It is a nice little reminder.
Well, you've got such a fascinating history. You lived in Hawaii for 8 years. You went to this Chinese medicine place. You've attended births. You've facilitated women's circles. You're Reiki certified. You're familiar with Peruvian shamanic practice. I mean, my gosh, what haven't you done? So I have to tell you, I didn't marry my husband, but my husband said the night he met me, he told his brother that he was going to marry me. So he didn't propose on my first date, but he declared his intentions. But I was a little different. I said, for 3.5 years. So let's talk about going to Yale, because that had to be an experience in itself. And you worked all over the world managing women's health and international health projects, and then you became a women's health coach. So how did you go through all of this and end up where you did?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I started in marketing and business and, grew up with an entrepreneurial father, from New York, Jewish all the way. And then, like you said, that's so fun that you found that older bio, because there was lots of variety in my upbringing. And yes, my parents followed Rajneesh. I don't know if you've heard of, in Oregon, there was I think there's even a movie made about it on Netflix. But anyway, to make a long story short, I was working with Procter & Gamble in Los Angeles and, in my business suits and stilettos, and my best friend from high school asked me to be at her birth. And I went, and, the stars twinkled and the birds sang, and I cried for 3 hours, and all I could say was that I was home. And so, then I went through this kind of midlife crisis or identity crisis, say in my early mid-20s, going, well, I have a successful career going, and yet where I feel at home is somehow being around birth, and what does this even look like? And so I hiked the Inca Trail up to Machu Picchu, and I remember it was the 4th day of the hike, and I just decided. I came back, I applied to grad school, quit my job, booked a 1-year around the world trip. And along the journey, I was working with midwives in West Africa, and that's when I was accepted at Yale. So a CNM is a certified nurse midwife. I did my master's in nursing at Yale, and so I specialize in OBGYN. And I got to tell you, spending the 3 years at Yale, I was how old, like 26 to 29, that age range. And it was amazing to be able to go back to school as a full-time student and just really take advantage of not only studying what I was really passionate about, but also really being a full-time graduate student on the Yale campus and taking advantage of all the guest speakers that came on campus and making amazing friends and getting my opportunity to live on the East Coast for a little bit and do weekends down in Manhattan. It was an amazing experience for sure. And so then I ended up doing my last rotation through school in Hawaii and met my husband. And like I said, he proposed our first date and I was crazy enough to say yes. And now we're 14 years later with 3 babies. And now they're actually 8, 6, and 3. And so while living in Hawaii, I ran. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, wow,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was.
Go ahead. You were just going to say something about Hawaii. What was the best thing about living in Hawaii?
Oh my gosh, there's so many amazing things about living in Hawaii. I think now that I'm back in Oregon, the thing that I miss most is being there. There's wow moments all the time. Like all I had to do was look out the window or step outside my house, and there's always moments where my eyes could just relish in beauty and wow. And I miss that. I miss the wow in my body. I miss the wow in my nose. I miss, swimming with dolphins and seeing whales. And there's nothing like just being still on the edge of where the water is lapping the sand. It was a really spectacular 8 years.
I live in Miami Beach, and I kind of feel the same way. When I look out my window, I live on the water, and I always see boats out there, and I'm always thinking to myself, I spent, the whole time I was married, because my husband was a boat nut, we had 3 boats in the back of our house, so we were every weekend out on the water. And now it's so different because, I live alone, and I don't have a boat, where I live, and I wouldn't be able to operate it anyway. And I'm self-isolating for almost a year now, so it's so different than when I was married. He passed away 12 years ago, and it's so different now. And I look out there and I say, my gosh, all the time I spent on the water, and now I just look at it, which is so different. But tell me about your experience at Yale.
Yeah. So first I want to say I'm sorry about your loss, losing your husband. I'm sorry. And I want to really acknowledge that you said that out loud. And my experience at Yale was amazing. I got to align with what felt like my passion on the planet. I got to make great friends. I had the opportunity to do really fun international work. I spent 2 summers in Nicaragua, and I got to head up an international health project down there deep in the Musawas, which is up in the northeastern corner. 2 days by car and 2 days by kayak, where there was no electricity, and we brought in midwifery supplies for 50 women and trained them on basic midwifery skills to try to decrease morbidity and mortality rates. It was spectacular, and I got to become a midwife. And, now my career has taken all sorts of twists and turns. I've attended births all over the world and in hospitals and birthing centers and home, and I've run the women's health at federally funded clinics, and I've ran a Planned Parenthood, and I've managed the women's health at, local functional medicine private practices. But I've also had the opportunity to practice telemedicine, and now I get to work as a women's health coach. And so I feel like working, doing my 3 years at Yale was an education in the allopathic approach to healthcare. But it also was that moment, I think for me, honestly, it was that time in my life where I finally patted myself on the shoulder and said, good job, Maraya. I was always so driven, and more and more I had to do better. And I think it was the first time in my life I was really proud of myself.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, now you also talk about libido. So how do you address that?
Yeah. Well, libido, what I say is I want to help women feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. And so when it comes to libido, my dog is making sound. I'm going to put her outside. Sequoia, come. When it comes to libido, and of course I'm a women's health provider, so we're going to address it from a physiological and hormonal perspective. Is it something related to estrogen dominance or low estrogen and testosterone and all of that? But I think sometimes women also need to remember that we have to feel lit up by our life. We have to look in the mirror and go, you're damn right. I'm really proud of who I was today and who I'm becoming. And so I think the approach to libido is also that. It's reminding women that our erogenous zone is our entire bodies. And foreplay for us and what turns us on is very different than most males. And it happens all day long, even in the night when you're laying next to your partner and you're intertwining your toes and your feet together. I mean, it's all of it. And so I have an 8-week program now as a women's health coach. And so we do a deep dive into, all right, is there anything going on physiologically? Let's make sure that your thyroid is great and really help you with your gut health and your adrenal health and your hormone health. But also, are you lit up by how you spend your days? And does that actually turn you on?
Are you lit up? I think that's so important, because it's just people live such quiet lives. They just don't really do the things that they need to do to live a full, happy life. And the fact that you're helping them with this is so fabulous. I think it's great. So you also don't talk about hormones. So what can women really expect and experience by using your approach?
Yeah, good question. So once again, I went to Yale and I got my, allopathic training in here are the labs that you order and here's the hormone replacement therapy. And then over the last 14 years, it was so fascinating. When I taught at the Chinese Medicine College, I was teaching them the Western medicine approach to healthcare. But of course, inevitably, they're teaching me the more Chinese medicine approach. And I think over the years studying nutrition and then being exposed to the Institute of Functional Medicine, my eyes really opened up. And when I did the hormone module through my IFM training, it was so fascinating to hear, yes, we can address our hormonal well-being, but really in order to do that, you start acknowledging that everything is connected. And so we do a deep dive into gut health and adrenal health and liver health and thyroid health and mindset and energy. And over the progression of that journey, often the hormones go, oh, all right, I get it. Those endocrine disruptors are out and the adrenals are happy and the gut is pumping out the right hormones because it's happy. And so it's a diet and lifestyle and mindset modification perspective. And then sometimes we add in some supplements or some botanicals. Sometimes we can do some specialized lab testing. But I think rather than going straight to here's your hormone replacement therapy or here's your quote unquote Band-Aid over a festering wound, it's a much more foundational approach to how are you eating, how are you living, how are you feeling, and acknowledging that that has a deep and profound impact on hormones. And hormones aren't just estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, but we also have to think that's oxytocin, and that's ghrelin and leptin and our thyroid hormones and, the hormones of feeling connected and happy and having proper digestion and having energy and having great bowel movements. I mean, that's all related to your hormones.
So is this all part of your 8-week program?
Yeah. So over the 8 weeks, we do a deep dive kind of systematically through each of those topics. And in the 8 weeks, there's pre-recorded modules that women are watching kind of in their own timing. There's also unlimited help tickets with me. So we're having a constant one-on-one banter to kind of massage and personalize the approach. There's also a nutrition coach that's part of it, helping women fine-tune their recipes and their meal plans and their shopping guides. And then we have live group calls every week with all the women going through the program. So we get to actually realize I'm not alone and hear other women's perspectives and their questions. And so it's a real deep, personalized program with accountability as well as, at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. So if you're enrolled, you also have to do the work.
So these women who are going through this program, how do they hear about you? What do they, in other words, people are always saying how energetic I am. And I'm usually not exhausted all the time, even though I go through a lot. Why do some women, is it all related to hormones? Is it related to thought process? Is it related to unhappiness? What is it that allows people to have the energy that they need, or is it all combined?
Yeah, great question. So let's think. I heard a few questions in there. So number one, how do they hear about what I do? I mean, women talk, so part of it is word of mouth, podcast. I run a large online platform called Beyond the Red Tent, which is a totally different project, but in there we have 14,000 women, and it's a platform for women to ask one another questions and get answers, mind, body, and spirit. And so obviously I share what I do in the midst of that. So that was how do women find out about me. You also asked about energy, and it's absolutely all connected. So, I mean, something as simple as thyroid. Okay, so a lot of women go to their provider and they say, I'm tired, my skin is dry, I'm constipated, I just can't get moving and grooving. And the provider orders what's called a TSH, a thyroid stimulating hormone, and that comes back officially normal within the range, which I'm sorry, the lab's ranges are way too broad, and that's not actually normal. And they're told, nope, it's not your thyroid. And so something as simple as just teaching a woman a more thorough, quantifiable way to look at her thyroid. Let's at least rule that out. Is that part of what's happening with the loss of energy? Okay. And then we look at the adrenals. The adrenals, their job is the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? Meaning I'm being chased by a wildebeest. But the reality is most of us are living really stressful lives, whether it's the food we're eating, the air we're breathing, the water we're drinking, financial stress, fear of illness. I love what Brene Brown says. In the moment of ecstasy, we rehearse tragedy. She gives the example of putting her child to sleep, and in that moment of just being like drowning and, oh my God, this is what love is, and this feels so good. And in that same moment, the dress rehearsal of what if something horrible happens tomorrow? And it's the human way. And in those moments where we have the propensity to dress rehearse tragedy, the adrenals actually respond as though we're being chased by a lion. The hormonal response, our palms will sweat, we'll feel the knots in our stomach. And what happens is our gut digestion is shut off, our immune system is shut off, our hormone production is shut off because the adrenals are kicked in for fight, flight, or freeze. And nowadays, we go outside and we're not necessarily afraid of being chased by a wildebeest and going back into the cave. Most of us are afraid of, am I going to be accepted? Am I enough? Is there going to be conflict with, political unrest in the world today? Am I loved? And that angst that is created is actually physiologically creating a fight, flight, or freeze response. And so once again, our gut health is shut off, our immune health is shut off, our hormone production is shut off, our clarity of thought is shut off. And so sometimes what I do helping women with their energy is actually going back and doing deep foundational adrenal support, which, yes, is diet and lifestyle and botanicals and adaptogens and all of that, but it's also mindset and giving women permission to really prioritize themselves and rest. Because we as women inevitably take care of everyone else first. And I'm actually saying, let's put on our own oxygen mask first. Because in doing so, we're a more fulfilled version of who we offer. And we also then give others permission to do the same because we set the example.
Well, I would like to know, because this has got to be a real culture shock going from Hawaii to Portland. I don't know how long you've lived in Portland, but, certainly the climates between Hawaii and Portland are totally different. What made you move to Portland?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm not actually in Portland. I'm in a town called Ashland. I'm way on the
south I know exactly where you are. I did some seminars there, so I know exactly where you are. Yeah. So I'm in Ashland, Oregon, and it's actually where I was born and raised. So I was born here in Ashland and then left when I was 18. And I was away for 20 years. And then we were living in Hawaii, and my second child was on the way.
And my grandparents were still alive, and they are the ones that taught me what love is in many ways. And they lived in the same house that I had grown up in as a child. And I knew that I wanted my children to have a relationship with their great-grandparents. And I knew that Ashland is a great place to raise children. And so we picked up and moved. And in the winter, I'm looking outside right now. We have our first snow of the year. There's a dusting, and my husband knows I despise being cold, and I'm not a skier. And I go, why did we do this? But this is a total side note, and it's a little bit sad. I don't mean to bring. It's not. A couple of weeks ago, my grandfather passed,
Aww.
and I am so. It makes me feel emotional, but I am forever grateful that I was here, and I got to be the one who helped the family facilitate the health journey and helped him through hospice. And for his last 6 hours of his life, I held his hand and looked in his eyes and massaged his body, and we were all together. And so at the end of the day,
and you're lucky you were able
to
do that, because they're not letting people near anyone, So that's amazing you were allowed to do that.
Yes, he was in hospice at home in an independent living facility, and they allowed family visits.
Wow.
Only because he was in hospice. And so, that's why. So often we can ask these questions of why has my path gone in this direction or that direction? And I think sometimes we have clarity ahead of time, and we can see the roadmap. And I think sometimes life happens, and it's not until in retrospect that we go, well, of course, that's why that happened the way it did.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you have a gift for our listeners. It's the adaptogen elixir recipes. So where can they get them? Give us an idea of what they are and where they can find it.
Sure. Okay. So first, if you just go to marayabrown.com, Maraya is M-A-R-A-Y-A, Maraya. So marayabrown.com, and you'll see on the page, and there'll be a pop-up. You're welcome to grab those free adaptogen elixirs. And while you're there, you can also book a breakthrough call, and I'll make sure to tell you what that is. But so first, adaptogen elixirs. So adaptogens all come from predominantly the plant, botanical, and mushroom kingdom. And they help your body better adapt to stress. They help attenuate the adrenal response. And so there's lots of them out there. Some of them you might have heard of, like ashwagandha and dark chocolate and green tea and reishi and chaga and cordyceps. I don't know if you're familiar with any of those words. And so the adaptogen elixirs are going to help go in and deeply soothe the adrenals, which then make a big difference in your overall anxiety and stress response and libido and hormone health and all of that. So that's just my gift to you. And you'll see you take the adaptogen, a protein source, a fat, and some liquid, you emulsify it, and then you can drink it throughout the day. And then while you're there at marayabrown.com, you can click on Get Started. And what I offer up is a free breakthrough call. And what that looks like is we sit down together for an hour. It's my gift to you. And I'm just going to have a conversation with you. What have you tried? What's not working? What are you wanting to change? And let's see if I can point you in the direction of solutions. I might offer you up a spot to work with me. I might not. I keep it very tight, and I handpick who I work with. But the good news is through Beyond the Red Tent, which is this online platform I've been running for 3 years, pretty much all I've done there is vet experts around the world. And so if I don't feel like it's the right fit for you to work in my program, I promise, first of all, there will be some breakthrough. You're going to have an aha in the midst of our conversation that you'll take with you forever. And I promise I'll point you in the direction of solutions to help you figure out your roadmap, your solutions to whatever it is that you're struggling with, predominantly in the realms of either your energy, your hormones, or your libido. I say that what I do is I help women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. And it's deep, profound work. And so if you're going to book that breakthrough call, all I ask is that you show up, and you show up really vulnerable and ready for change and ready for transformation. Anyway, so that's my gift to everybody.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Maraya, because, there's a lot of people that go to a breakthrough call, and they're coming in with a no, this isn't going to work for me, or a negative, or this is not for me. And so what Maraya is saying to you is, here is a gift of someone who is very knowledgeable, someone who is very well versed in what she does. And this is a marvelous opportunity to take advantage of it. So not only would I go there and get her recipes, but I would go there and I would book that breakthrough session. So it's Maraya, Maraya Brown.com. That's where you can find her. And remember, you can find me at spunkyoldbroad.com, and you've got my coffee cups there, my courses, my virtual SOB club from Facebook, and so many other things. So thanks so much for being with us today, Maraya. It was really, I think, eye-opening, and I wish you the best, and I know you will have a great deal of success, and look forward to those summer months.
Yes, thank you, and I'll pretend I'm in Miami looking at the ocean just like you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gailcarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.